Yeah, this video is going to talk about how to plot some statistics on your calculator, and I'm specifically going to be showing a TI-83 or a TI-84 calculator, graphing calculator, and also how to calculate that correlation number on a calculator so that we can kind of understand what our data looks like. Now on the screen, there is 5 data points that we're going to plot on my calculator. And you can already see what it looks like. I wanted to show the picture. And just by looking at the picture at this point, hopefully you understand a little bit about correlation and that you understand the data points make actually a pretty nice straight line. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. It's going uphill. So if you understand correlation at this point, you should know that this correlation value is going to be positive because my pattern is uphill. It's going to be close to 1 because these data points make a really pretty good straight line pattern. So we're going to move to the calculator and plot some points. If you know how to do it, you can plot them. If you don't, this would be a good thing to follow along with if you have your own calculator. The first thing we have to do is actually put the data points into the calculator. So what we need to do to put data points in the calculator, we need to hit the stat key right here, and then we need to edit. We're going to edit our statistics. So I hit enter to edit, and I get to my table of values. Now, these values that are in this table right now are not the data points I want to plot. These are data points left over from a previous problem that I had worked on. So a good, quick way to delete your data in your calculator is to arrow to the top to the label at the top. In my case, it's L1. And then just to hit the clear key and hit enter, and that will clear out all my data points in that column quickly. Okay, so I'm going to go over to L2 and I'm going to clear that column out. And now I'm all set to enter my data points. Now we can think of L1 and L2 as really a T-chart in algebra when we have to list points, x's and y's. So the first column is going to be my x's. And the data points that I had on the screen, the first x value was 2. And actually, I'll go side to side here so you can see the coordinates. The first coordinate that I plotted was the coordinate 2, 4. So right now on my screen, I have the coordinate 2, 4 plotted. And you can actually see my calculator, since I can see the screen, 2 screens at once. It plotted the point 2, 4 for me. And now, I'm going to go and just type in the rest of the x values. The next x value is 3, and then 1, and 0, and -2. Now you can see, if you look down here where my graph was, right now I have an error on my calculator. And the reason I have an error is because it doesn't know what to do. There's no y values typed in with the x values I have. And this happens frequently to students in my classroom. They'll get this error, this dimension mismatch error, and they'll ask questions. They'll say, hey, I don't know what's going on. I keep getting an error. And the first thing you want to do when you get that error is go back to this window, your stat edit window, and just make sure that you have the same number of x's as you do y's. Because if you don't, that's where that error is going to show up. So let me finish off the y's here. The y values were, let's see, we've got a 6, a 2, a -2, and a 10. Okay, and now they're going to all line up. I'm going to have x's and y's all lined up, and I'll be just fine there. There's my points all plotted on the screen. Now I see that there's a slight error. This one should have been a 4, and the reason I see that slight error is there's a nice pattern here in the picture, but I saw this dot way up here. It's kind of like, hey, they either made a mistake or the data is a little bit different. That would be considered an outlier in my data, but there we go. That's plotted correctly. Now, once you have your data typed in, the next step would be to go to your graph, and you go to your graph screen. Okay, sometimes you'll see all the data lined up. Now the data points I used were nicely placed in the the standard viewing window on the calculator. But let's say no points show up. There's 2 things we have to check. The first thing we have to check is to make sure that you told the calculator to plot the points. I've already told mine, but let's talk about how to do that. You want to go to second, stat plot, and you'd want to make sure that this is turned on. And this was covered in a previous video of mine, but we'll do it right here. Make sure that's turned on. If yours isn't, you can click on it and make sure that you choose the on and enter. Okay, and then we can go back to the graph, And the other thing that we like to do here is I like to see my points in a really nice viewing window. Notice there's a lot of white space on the left and a lot of white space on the bottom. So the fastest way when you've plotted points to really see your data well in the window is to hit zoom and to choose the option that says zoom statistics, this zoom stat option. In my case, it's a zoom 9. I'll go zoom stat. And it'll show me my data points. It'll really zoom in on it, and just realize that the viewing window has changed a bit here. The scale on the x-axis is not the same as the scale on the y-axis. It just creates a nice viewing window. It shows me that this is a really nice linear pattern. Okay, so I've got zoom 9 and I've got my data. Now the next thing that I'd like to do is I'd like to be able to calculate this correlation number. Okay, and the way I'm going to do it is the first thing I want everybody to check is to make sure that your calculator is set to calculate this correlation number. And the way that you do it is the best way I found is to go into your catalog. So to do that, you have to hit the second key. And down here is catalog. The number 0 right above it is catalog. And go into your catalog. And we need to scroll down to all the D's. Now, if you've never done this before, there's a fast way to get to the D's. And that's to find the letter D key on your calculator. In this case, it's right here for me. I see the little letter D. And it will jump to the D's for me. And I need to arrow down to this diagnostic on, this option right here, diagnostic on. And I need to hit enter. And it'll come onto my screen. I'll hit enter to run that. And it says done. I need to make sure I do that now. You only have to do it once on your calculator. You don't have to do it every time. It's just something, it's like a light switch. It's either on your calculator or it's off on your calculator. And it needs to be on in order for us to be able to calculate this correlation number. Now, here we go. Now I'll finally calculate the correlation. So what we want to do is we want to calculate it. And the way we do that is we go into our statistics menu again. So I need my stat key here. I go stat. But this time I don't want to edit my statistics. I want to calculate something about my statistics. So I'm going to arrow over. And the area that I go to, because we use this a lot in statistics, not necessarily right now in this video, but I'm going to go down to option 4, linreg ax plus b. This is linear regression line, or you might know it as a best fit line. We're going to calculate it, and that screen is going to tell us a lot of things, but for now, the number that I want is the number that we have studied all along. And hopefully you understand which of these numbers is correlation, because remember the letter that represents correlation is R. So the correlation value right here, this R value, is 0.9899. Okay, I'm going to jump back to my screen here, 0.9899. I'm going to put that on the screen here, 0.9899. Okay, now, that was a correlation. I suppose I should probably label this an R value just so that we're clear. And so my correlation is 0.9899. Now, when I look at that number, I say, hey, first of all, it's positive. My data is going uphill. We can see that, our data points going uphill. The second thing you should know is, hey, look at that number. That is so close to positive 1. If it was positive 1, this would be a perfect straight line. But we know that it isn't a perfect straight line. If I were to kind of try to draw a best fit line in here, we can tell that, hey, there's a couple of points slightly off, but this is a good best fit line. It's almost perfect. If it was perfect, this R would be a 1. But it's really close to 1, which says, hey, you got a really nice line going here. I put together this little slide just to help you out. I do post this online. Just a quick reference, but you could take a screenshot of this video if you'd like right now, or print this slide if you'd like, future reference on how to do what we just did. We enter our data, we go zoom 9 so we can see it. We go stat calc number 4, which is a linreg, making sure that you have your catalog turned on. If you don't, right here, this R value is 0 for the data that was on this calculator. But if you don't see this R and R squared in here, then remember you got to go to your catalog and turn your diagnostic on. If you don't have a TI-83, 84, or a different calculator, or you don't have a calculator that can do this, There are online resources that you could find. Just do a search, online correlation calculator or something of that nature. I have found a couple things to be helpful and useful. Easy calculation is one that I've seen in the past that you could try if you'd like. But